Hello students, welcome to Notebook Video Lessons. We shall discuss the chapter The Philosophy of the Constitution in today's lesson. So, let us begin straight away. We shall begin with the question, what do we mean by the philosophy of the Constitution? We all know that our Constitution lays down laws and guidelines which are to be followed in governing the country. It is commonly believed that laws do not have moral content. They are strict and rigid. However, many laws in our Constitution are closely related to values. For example, prohibition of discrimination is based on the value of equality. Thus, we must have a political philosophy approach towards our Constitution. We must strive to understand the structure and terms used in the Constitution. We must also keep in mind the Constituent Assembly debates and uses them to understand the Indian Constitution. Now, we shall see how the Constitution was used to bring about a democratic transformation in the country. One of the most important rules of the Constitution is to keep the modern states from getting too powerful or tyrannical. What if the institutions which were created to protect citizens' rights fall into the wrong hands' power? This is where the Constitution steps in and lays down basic rules, thereby preventing the abuse of power. The Constitution also brings about social transformations by removing traditional hierarchies and wrongful practices. Thus, the Constitution empowers those who have been deprived of it over the ages. Now, the question arises, why do we need to go back to our Constituent Assembly to properly understand the Constitution? Even though it may seem like looking back into the past binds us to it and hinders our growth, we need to keep revisiting the debates and discussions which led to the formation of the Constitution. We need to go back to understand the political philosophy which underlies our Constitution. But what is the political philosophy of our Constitution? Our Constitution is committed to equality, social justice, freedom, and national unity. However, there is much emphasis on using democratic and peaceful measures to put this philosophy into practice. We shall now discuss some principal ideas of our Constitution. These can also be seen as substantive achievements of the Constitution. These 5 principal ideas are individual freedom, social justice, secularism, federalism, and national identity. Let's discuss these in detail. Individual freedom. The Constitution's commitment to individual freedom was a result of years of intellectual and political activities. Raja Ram Mohan Roy was one of the first to protest against the British rule, which restricted the freedom of the press. He stated that the press needs to remain free in order for the general public to voice their opinions. Freedom of expression, conscience, and freedom from arbitrary arrest are some individual freedoms. Thus, we see how the Constitution is strongly liberal. Social justice. Unlike Western classical sense of liberalism, liberalism in Indian Constitution makes sure that individual freedom is linked to social justice. For example, the Constitution believed that mere granting of right to equality was not enough for the people who have been deprived for ages. Thus, special measures were taken to protect the interests of the scheduled castes and the scheduled tribes. The Constitution makers also kept in mind the diverse communities and minorities. They sought to remove the hierarchical relations and the rivalries. In order to prevent dominance by any particular community, the Constitution recognized community-based rights. One such right is the right of religious communities to run their own educational institutions. Moreover, these institutions receive monetary support from the government to run them. Secularism. Unlike the Western concept of secularism, our Constitution does not see religion and state as mutually exclusive. Mutual exclusion means that the state and religious bodies do not interfere in the internal affairs of the other. This is done to safeguard individual rights and freedom. If a person's religious rights and freedom are threatened by a religious organization, he should be able to turn towards an unbiased state or government for the protection of his religious beliefs and faith. Indian Constitution departed from this model of secularism in two ways. Rights of religious groups. Indian Constitution gives rights to all religious communities to establish and maintain their educational institutions. Freedom of religion in India means the freedom of religion of both individuals and communities. State's power of intervention. The state can step in and stop traditional religiously sanctioned customs like the practice of untouchability and animal or human sacrifice. Our next topic, universal franchise or the right to vote, is one of the earliest instruments by which the nation's will was to be exercised. Federalism. India has a concept of asymmetric federalism despite having a strong central government. This was done to meet the needs of certain areas of the country. For instance, the Articles 370 and 371 concerning Jammu and Kashmir and Northeast India. However, Article 370 has been superseded or replaced by a new constitutional order as of 5th August 2019. National identity. Indian Constitution strives to uphold regional identities as well as a common national identity. However, the Constitution rejected the idea of separated electorates based on religious identity. This was done to maintain a healthy national life. Next, we shall discuss some procedural achievements of the Constitution. First, the Indian Constitution shows faith in long and procedural political discussions. The makers wanted to be as inclusive in their approach as possible. Secondly, a spirit of positive compromise and accommodation can also be seen. Till now, we have discussed the positives of the Constitution, but surely there are some criticisms and limitations. Let us take a quick look at them. Criticisms of the Constitution. The Indian Constitution is unrepresentative. At the time of its formation, there was no universal franchise, and the people who participated in the making of the Constitution were mostly from the advanced sections of the society. The Indian Constitution is unwieldy. It means that the Constitution is too large and disorganized. The Indian Constitution is alien. It is a common allegation that the Constitution is borrowed from several Western countries, and the ethos do match our cultural identity. However, this borrowing is innovative, and the Constitution does fit into our cultural ethos. Moreover, a hybrid society has emerged due to local systems coming in contact with modern Western methods. Let us discuss the limitations of the Constitution now. The Constitution has a strong centralized idea of national identity. It has not paid much attention to important issues like gender justice, particularly within the family. Certain important socio-economic rights have been added to the directive principles list and not the fundamental rights list. With that, we come to the end of this lesson. We hope this video lesson helps you with your studies. See you soon.